So, last week we looked at the Ten Commandments. This week we are going to be marching towards the Promised Land, and here's the lesson for today in a brief sentence. God is not in a hurry. Do you believe that? God is not in a hurry. Now, this is difficult for us because God's primary concern is not speed. But ours usually is, isn't it? Anytime the family goes on vacation, the kids in the back seat, again, we just saw it over and over again. Are we there yet? And as parents, we just can't wait. You know, we look forward to the day when the kids mature, when they become patient, and there's no more silly fighting over, he looked at me, he breathed at me, he smiled at me, he touched me. Where are we going to stop for lunch? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? We wait for a long time for that day to come because we want our kids to grow up. But we never get much different, do we? God, get me this job. God, get me this house. God, get me this relationship. God, get me to this financial condition. God, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And there's something that God knew, and He still knows. God knew that where there are going to be His people, it's not as nearly as important as the kind of people we are becoming on the way. That having a land flowing with milk and honey was not nearly as important as having a heart flowing with love, with justice, with courage, and with faith. Having a portfolio flowing with dollars or a job flowing with power doesn't matter nearly as much as having a character that flows with the fruit of the Spirit. You see, God kept His people in the wilderness because He had certain lessons that they needed to learn. And when you're in the wilderness, there's not usually a lot of distractions. When you're in the wilderness, people are a lot more likely to pay attention to God. So all throughout the Old Testament, many of God's most important people, people like Moses and David and Elijah, they spent a lot of time in the wilderness. So today, you and I are going to journey with them to the Promised Land. We're going to learn some lessons from the wilderness. And again, it's going to be kind of a history lesson, but I think there's some lessons along the way for you. So why don't you take your Bibles, hopefully you brought them with you, and go to Exodus chapter 15. Exodus chapter 15, kind of where we left off last week. We're going to go to wilderness school, where God is taking the people to form His people. And we're going to look at several passages. We're going to have you do a lot of turning this morning that share a real common theme throughout the book of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Now the Israelites, they've just been delivered from Pharaoh and his army. You might remember from last week. And they've crossed the Red Sea. And God has given them this miraculous redemption. But notice what happens here. This is how it kind of goes. Chapter 15, verse 22. Then Moses led Israel from the Red Sea, and they went into the desert of Shur. For 3 days they traveled in the desert without finding water. When they came to Marah, they could not drink the water because it was bitter. That's why the place is called Marah. So the people grumbled against Moses, saying, "What are we to drink?" Now, a person would think on the outset that since God had just delivered these guys from Egypt, they had seen Him perform these 10 plagues. They had seen Him drown Pharaoh and his army. You would think that their faith was at this huge, high level. No way. 3 days. God is at the wheel. And the kids are in the back seat saying, "God, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" But God miraculously provides. And He tells Moses to throw a piece of wood in the water. And he does. And it, miracle, purifies the water. So now, the Israelites, they've got freedom. They've got miraculous guidance. They've got this direction. They've got supernaturally provided water to drink. Now you think these guys are going to be faithful and they're going to be content. Not so much. Chapter 16. The whole Israelite community set out from Elim and came to the desert of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai. So they're heading south now. On the 15th day of the second month after they'd come out of Egypt. In the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted, but you have brought us out in this desert to starve this entire assembly to death." Now, notice verse 3. If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. These guys are raising complaining to an art form. We're not asking much, God, just death. There we were in Egypt. We sat around pots of meat, ate all the food that we wanted. Do you remember what their occupation was in Egypt? They were slaves. They didn't just sit around eating ice cream from Baskin Robbins all day, They're slaves in Egypt. But one of the things that discontent does is it plays with your mind. And it distorts your perspective. And you start to exaggerate how bad your condition is. And you look through rose-tinted glasses at how things used to be. At the good old days, how things are for somebody else. And I think that's kind of human nature, and I think that's kind of what's going on here. Going down to verse 6, kind of pick the key word here, the text that's going on here from verses 6 to 12. So Moses and Aaron said to the Israelites, "In the evening you will know that it was the Lord who brought you out of Egypt. In the morning you will see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your grumbling against him. Who are we that you should grumble against us?" Moses also said, "You will know that it was the Lord when he gives you meat to eat in the evening and all the bread you want in the morning, because he has heard your grumbling against him. Who are we? You are not grumbling against us, but against the Lord." Then Moses told Aaron, "Say to the entire Israelite community, 'Come before the Lord, for he has heard your grumbling.'" While Aaron was speaking to the whole Israelite community, they looked towards the desert, and there was the glory of the Lord appearing in the cloud. The Lord said to Moses, "I have heard the grumbling of the Israelites. Tell them, at twilight you will eat meat. In the morning you will be filled with bread. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God." Now, did you pick up on what the key word here is? Grumbling. They grumbled. These guys were just big-time grumblers, over and over. Several times it says that the Lord heard their grumbling. And God hears it. And, I guess as I read this passage over this week several times, I expected God to get upset, to get angry. But no, God is very gracious. He just keeps providing. Look at verse 13. That evening, quail came and covered the camp. In the morning, there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the dew was gone, thin lakes like frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. Remember the manna cookies that we had? When the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. Moses said to them, "It's the bread the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Each one is to gather as much as he needs. Take an omer for each one, and you have in your tent." Now, what is it that God is trying to teach them here? Moses makes this real explicit in Deuteronomy 8 when he says, he's looking back at this episode decades later, he says, God humbled you, causing you to hunger, and then feeding you with manna. Now friends, it wasn't just in hunger that God provided. It says that your clothes did not wear out. It says that your feet did not swell. In other words, it says, shoes and sandals were taken care of as well during these 40 years. Think of what would do to clothes being in the desert like that. They couldn't just run to Walmart when they wanted to run to Walmart. Moses says, you didn't get your clothes from the mall. He says the Lord was our tailor. And this is the way it worked in the desert. God was telling his people, don't worry, I'll take care of you. I'm enough. Trust me. Now, there's a very important rule about manna gathering that we have to look at, okay? So look at verse 17. The Israelites did as they were told. Some gathered much, some little. And when they measured it by the omer, he who gathered much did not have too much, and he who gathered little did not have too little. Each one gathered as much as he needed. Then Moses said to them, no one is to keep any of it until the morning. However, some of them paid no attention to Moses. They kept a small part of it until morning. But it was full of maggots and it began to smell. So Moses was angry with them. Now, here's the manna rule that you have to get. Okay, this is really important. And this is it. It's one day at a time. God will provide for you one day at a time. Trust God for this day right now. Now, I know some people, they get anxious. Some people, they get greedy. Some people get afraid. Some people thought that they're going to get beaten out by the system, and they got real clever. So God had something very important to teach them, and it's this manna principle by which you and I are to live. God says, I want you to live your life trusting me one day at a time. Just this day. Just learn to trust me this day, because if you start worrying about tomorrow, you're going to worry your whole life long. God says, I'll really take care of you. But you're going to have to trust me to do it one day at a time. This day. Now Jesus, He was deeply influenced in the New Testament by this teaching. Remember the essential part of the prayer that He taught His followers, you and I, to pray? He says, ask for what kind of bread? Our daily bread. Our daily manna. God, meet the needs that I have this day. God, I don't ask for guarantees about tomorrow. I don't need to have answers to questions that I haven't been asked yet. I don't need to have the ability to cross a bridge that I haven't come up to yet. God, I'll trust you this day, my daily bread today. And when I wake up tomorrow morning like manna, your mercies are going to be new again tomorrow morning. So God, I'm going to make my life an adventure in trusting you just one day at a time. Just this day. Now, I have to be honest, it's been a humbling thing for me to think about this principle. Because I do what the Israelites did. I worry. I grumble. And here's what's humbling about that. Usually when I do that, it's not about other people. It's about me. You see, I worry about my own little agenda. I worry about my own projects, how it's going to turn out. I worry what people are going to think about me. I worry what my future is going to look like. And usually it's because I'm carrying around a burden that's just a foolish burden anyway. And Jeff gets preoccupied with Jeff. But my guess is I'm not the only one. Anybody else in here worry besides me? So here's our challenge, yours and mine, for this week. Learn to live the manna principle. One day at a time. One day at a time. You'll be tempted this week sometime to worry. To worry about your future, to worry about your money, to worry about your body, to worry about your marital status, to worry about your kids or your grandkids, or to worry about your job, or to worry about some tough meeting coming up. You know, something that you think that you just got to have. And you'll get anxious about it. So my challenge is, instead, when any of those moments come up, when those thoughts start to arise, those feelings come up, just turn to God and say, God, give me my manna for today. Just this day. Give me just enough wisdom. Give me just enough patience. Give me just enough courage. Give me just enough love to handle this day. And as best I can, God, I'll trust that when I wake up in the morning, there'll be more manna cookies on the ground. There'll be more grace for the next day. There'll be more love, more courage for the next day, that you'll be there to help me this next day. So God, I'm not going to collect any more from you than what I really need. I'll just learn to trust you for this day. And I'll fully live, I'll fully inhabit this day. Do you understand the extent to which the joy and the aliveness that God offers to His kingdom are more dependent on people learning and living by this one simple principle? This principle of manna of one day at a time? Because you can really live with confidence with God and a partnership with God in amazing ways if we're willing to learn just this one single thing. And it's going to take a while to learn. Because worry has got a hold on most of us. But the secret is, every time that worry alarm clock goes off in our minds, every single time, just go back and say, okay, God, manna for today. Just enough for today. That's what God's trying to